All right, well, it's 1:03, so we will get this started now. And I'll start by sharing my screen. Thank you everyone for joining this webinar. Hopefully you can see on the screen right now, MX Masterclass, how to build a preventive maintenance program from scratch. I want to introduce you by really just saying this is the first episode of our new series called MX Masterclass. So this new series is really based and dedicated to share game-changing strategies and insights to help you optimize your maintenance operations, to enhance your asset reliability, and to drive excellence across your organizations. And today, I will have the pleasure to talk to you, as I said, about how to build a preventive maintenance program from scratch. And so, without further ado, let me introduce myself. So, my name is Vincent. I will be your host today. I am joined by a lot of keyboard warriors as well. So, if you do have any questions during this webinar, please don't hesitate to use the Q&A section or the chat if you prefer, and we will have somebody from MaintainX answer your questions. So jumping back to myself, I'm again Vincent. I'm a senior implementation consultant here at MaintainX, been with the company for a little bit over 2 years now. I do have a background in mechanical engineering, and before joining MaintainX, I used to work as a production supervisor, in the manufacturing world, working in the cosmetic industry. Throughout my 2 years and a little bit more at MaintainX, I have implemented over 500 sites that are currently using MaintainX on a day-to-day basis. So for the agenda for today's call, what we will be looking at is the key benefits of having a well-structured PM program. Then we'll talk about why and how to choose some KPIs to measure and to track the performance of your program. We'll talk about how to develop a strategic approach to it, how to build a strong foundation, as well as how to optimize your PM program. And last but not least, we will touch point on how to leverage technology to supercharge your PM program. But first of all, without jumping into the topic too much, I have a first question for you. So again, you can, use the chat that is available to you. I want to get to know who's on the call today. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit, what's your industry, what you're working, and what is your role at your company as well. So I'll give you about a minute. Hopefully we'll have a lot of answers in the chat and we get to know everybody that's attending the meeting today. All right, I see a lot of different teams. Aerospace, facilities, car wash, symmetry. There's a lot of various industries. That's awesome. Keep them coming. All right, well, thank you all for that. I will keep moving forward with what are the key benefits of having a PM program. So I have 4 main benefits that I will highlight here. The first one, which to me should be the priority for everybody, whenever we talk about operations, safety should always be at the top of the list. Whether we're talking about just maintaining, your facility in itself, you're maintaining your fire extinguishers, your, safety showers that you might have as well, anything related to safety. But it's also, you have, a wall-mounted HVAC, for example. Well, you want to make sure that it's maintained, that it's in good shape, that there's no risk of it just falling down and falling on somebody, of course. So having a good PM program, what it does in terms of safety, it just helps to reduce safety risks. It's helped us to prevent accidents and limit the near miss, which is, of course, a goal that we should all share. The second one is increasing equipment lifetime. So when we talk about, performing maintenance on equipment on a day-to-day basis, the results will be, limiting the wear and tear that the equipment will go through. It helps us to maximize the optimal working condition of the equipment as well. So we ensure that the equipment is in the best shape possible to make sure that it can run as long as possible as well. If we don't perform any maintenance, typically what it does is we will revert to going back to what we call the run to failure, which, as we probably all know, it's not something that is really good for the equipment. When we get those failures, typically it's something that, of course, well, it's not planned, first of all, and it's usually results in a much larger downtime or just a much larger problem than we would have had if we were to just do a quick, maybe visual inspection or something like that on a monthly basis to prevent those downtime. The third one is reducing cost. So, I mean, maintenance is sometimes seen as a cost center, but this is something that we need to change. We need to really highlight what are the benefits in terms of cost to having a good PM program. We talked about unplanned downtime a little bit. Going back to it, so maintenance really helps in terms of lowering your unplanned downtime, and we know that unplanned downtime is directly equals to losing money in terms of operations. And so we want to make sure that we have a good PM program to avoid having equipment going down on a daily basis. The other thing is we're talking about run to failure. When we get those type of issues with equipment, it usually leads to emergency repairs. And who says emergency repairs also says, ordering parts with priority shipping, having a specific line, having a specific type of equipment, just being down for a long period of time. And this is something that is very, very expensive for the business as well. Last but not least, increased productivity. So whenever we have good PMs, good inspections that is getting performed on our equipment, what it does is, well, of course, it limits downtime. It helps us minimize the reactive work that we need to do. So there's less and less, fire to pull out as well on a day-to-day basis during the day of work. And the third one is making production and operation to make them become more predictable as well. And the benefit of having operations that are predictable, it's way easier to manage the schedule. It's way easier to just foresee yourself in the future and see what you'll be able to accomplish, what you'll be able to produce, and when you will be able to introduce maybe some new types of intervention, some new projects, and things like that. So moving on to choosing the right KPIs, because when we start creating a PM programs, one thing that is very important is to set some goals, set some objectives. Now, I will introduce you, if you don't already know this, but I will introduce you to SMART objectives. Now, what are SMART objectives? Well, the S in SMART means that we need something to be specific. So if we start our PM program and our main objective is, well, I want to have a PM program. Well, this is not a SMART objective because this is way too broad. We need to have something that is specific, something that is narrow. We want to have something similar to, okay, I want to complete, more preventive maintenance work order per week. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. Now introducing the M for measurable. So we want to make sure that our goal is something that is measurable, that we can track it. So instead of saying, I want to complete more preventive maintenance work orders per week, we could say something like, okay, I want to maybe complete 10 maintenance work orders per week. So this is the measurable portion of our objective. Something that is achievable. So we want to make sure that it's something that you can accomplish. So if based on past experience, maybe it's your past experience, maybe it's the company's past experience, you were completing, let's say, 2 maintenance work orders per quarter. And now your objective would be at 10. This is not really something that is achievable only based on historical data. So we want to make sure that we adjust to something that you can reach, that you can really just success doing. Something that is relevant. So we want to make sure that it aligns with your long-term vision. So again, here talking about building a PM program, whenever we're talking about things that surrounds operations that surround maintenance, then it aligns with our long-term vision. And timely, something that is very important and that is overseen as well. Whenever you create this PM program, make sure that your objectives have an end date. We want to make sure that we can say, okay, these are our top 3 objectives that we want to reach. These are our goals, and we give ourselves 3 months to reach them. So this way, all along, maybe on a weekly basis, you can review those objectives, and at the end of the 3 months, you can say, okay, did we achieve it? Did we fail? What can we change? How can we adjust? So here are a few examples of smart KPIs that should be applied on the creation of a PM program. So completing a certain amount of PM work orders per week. As I was saying, we could have an on-time PM completion of a certain percentage as well. So we want to make sure that not only we perform our PMs, but we also perform them on time. So if we need to do them every month, are we completing them before the end of the month? Or are we pushing them back a couple of weeks, and instead of doing it every month, we're doing them every 6 weeks or something like that? Increasing our preventive to reactive work order ratio by a certain amount. So again, here, if we're currently working a lot on putting out fire, we have a lot of reactive work, we don't have a lot of preventive, our goal would be to really just get this number higher, make sure that we introduce some preventive work orders in our day-to-day. Getting our MTBF, so mean time between failures, up to a certain amount of hours. So again, this is something that is directly linked to a good PM program. So whenever you have some good PMs in place, your MTBF should be going up. And so this is why this is also a smart objective to have. And last but not least, going a little bit out of the box here, if you are using a CMMS, hopefully this is what you're doing right now, or this is a plan that you have. So tracking a certain amount of labor hours per week as well. So you want to make sure that your team is using the system and that they are tracking everything that, or a good portion of what they are doing on their week to week. So second question for you here, again, trying to get as much information from people on the call today. For your current PM program situation, what is your biggest challenge in regards to your PM program? Is there something that is blocking you? Is it, the discrepancy between maintenance and operations? Is it a lack of people on your team, maybe? Is it a lack of system? So anything, that you can come up with, again, I'll give about a minute to go through this. All right, lack of people, lack of system, all of the above. All right, a lot of interesting answers here. Thank you very much. So we'll keep moving, and hopefully, there's some key takeaways that you'll be able to take out of this. So developing a strategic approach. So whenever we start with, building a PM program, of course, we don't want to jump left and right and try to solve everything in one day. This is not something that is realistic. So I'll introduce you to 2 concepts. The first one is the PDCA approach. So plan, do, check, and act. So this is a cycle that goes on and on. It's a wheel. It's part of a continuous improvement, notions where plan. So you want to make sure that you set up your goals. This is what we talked about. Define your smart objectives, your KPIs. So this is really implementing the solution. So starting to complete your PMs, just performing the work, and then we get to the third step, which is to check. So this is where we take a quick pause, we take a step back, and we evaluate, okay, this is where we wanted to be. This is where we're at now. Okay, now moving on to step 4, to act. What can we do to readjust? What can we do to maybe, just get better? Maybe just keep on the pace that we have right now because we're on pace to reach our objective. And then we just do the cycle over and over again. So this is a great notion to keep in mind. Keep that in your back pocket. The PDCA approach, so plan, do, check, act. I will be talking about this a lot during my presentation today. The second one is the crawl, walk, run approach. This is something that every time I implement a site, this is something that I bring back. The crawl, walk, run approach. We need to crawl before we can walk. We need to walk before we can run. We cannot expect to have a perfect maintenance program from day one. I mean, this is just absolutely non-reasonable. We want to make sure that we start with the basics. We start simple, and then slowly we introduce and we improve our program. And this leads us to building a strong foundation for our PM program. So this is the crawling portion. This is where we begin our motion toward a healthy preventive maintenance program. So there's 4 key portions of this. The first one, defining KPIs. Second one is we start with critical assets. The third one is we develop basic procedures or SOPs. And the fourth one, we need to pick the right platform. Now, jumping into more details on all of them. So defining KPIs. This is what we've been talking so far, smart objectives. We want to set a baseline. We want to know where we're at today. We want to set objectives. We want to compare where we were, where we begin, where we are in 2 weeks, in 3 months, and depending on the timeline that you set yourself to. And we want to keep track of those KPIs. Last but not least, communication. This is very important. And again, going back to discrepancy between maintenance and operations, I think personally that it's very important to communicate the goals that you set yourself and that you set to your team as well. Whether it's just a quick meeting with operation, telling them like, hey, we're starting this new program. Here are our objectives. Here's our approach. Just general, no need to jump into anything technical here, but just so that people are aware that there is this new initiative that is starting. Start with critical assets. The reason for it, again, don't get overwhelmed. If you try to do everything all at once, if you try to just get this PM program on the run for all of your equipment all at once, I'm telling you, your team will be exhausted. They will be overwhelmed. They won't know what to prioritize, how to do it even. So make sure that you start with a few of your critical assets. Make sure that you narrow your focus. What it does as well is if you need to readjust. So if after a week or two, you realize, okay, maybe our first approach wasn't the right one, let's readjust, let's take a few steps back, and let's just keep moving forward. Then it's way easier to do it when you only have a few equipment than when you have all of them. Now, in terms of critical asset, you might ask yourself, okay, how do I know if an equipment is critical or not? Well, it exists. What we have is a criticality analysis. And this is something that you can find on, the web or any places like that. So essentially, a criticality analysis, what it does is you just analyze the severity of something that fails, something that breaks down. If you have an issue with one of your piece of equipment, what is the severity of it? And also, what's the frequency? And based on your 2 evaluation, you will get a ranking for your equipment. And this is what you can use to start prioritizing your PM plan and really just focus on your most critical piece of equipment. So coming back to the crawling portion here, the third thing that is very important is to develop basic procedures and SOPs. So when we talk about basic procedures, a lot of time, if you don't have anything currently and you don't know what you need to inspect or when you need to inspect, OEM manuals is usually the way to go when you're starting. So you should be able to find them, whether you have them physically at your location, whether you have them online. In 2024, a lot of things can be found online, whether it's based on, if you don't have OEM manuals, you should always base yourself out of data history that you might have in another software that you are using, or maybe it's just your team's knowledge. You might have somebody that's been there for multiple years, and they can tell you everything that happened in the last 20 years like it was the tip of their fingers. So make sure that you leverage this knowledge to start creating those procedures and SOPs. And when we talk about SOPs, like standard operating procedures, it's really like check step by steps what you should be inspecting when you perform a maintenance on a specific piece of equipment. If you do have the OEM manual, use their recommended frequency to begin with. So it will not be perfect. I mean, the OEM manuals, they are built for equipment operating in a certain environment, which might not be the same one that you have at your facility. So make sure that you start with it, but then we will talk about it, but you keep track of how it goes, and then you can adjust in the future. Make sure to start simple. So if you don't have any OEM manuals, you don't really have any history, you don't know what to inspect on the equipment, start simple. Typically cleaning, inspection, lubrication. This is the basic of maintenance, really, where you clean up the equipment, you see if there's anything, any leakage, any accumulation of, anything really on the equipment anywhere. And then if everything's good, you lubricate it, and then you start it up again. If you find out anything that was wrong, maybe something is leaking from a motor, you have some oil on the floor, some things like that. Well, you made sure to raise those flags and then to go and investigate the issue. Last but not least, it may seem, logic or just straightforward, but make sure that your team is trained on how to perform the maintenance as well. With the change of scenery that we see with a lot of new technicians coming on board, it might be their first job. It might be their first time touching some pieces of equipment even. So make sure that they know what needs to be done when they perform a maintenance. Make sure that they know that, okay, even if they perform a maintenance on one specific piece of equipment, they should always have their eyes wide open and look for anything that, might be just near what they are inspecting. It might be something close to it, but it's not directly on the equipment, but still it's great to flag those issues as well. It could be as simple as just teaching them like, hey, like greasing points and lubrication points, those exist, and here they are, and here's how to, use them when you perform your maintenance. Pick the right platform. So of course, we recommend using a CMMS. So this is why those software exists to really help you manage your maintenance. Make sure that you track, good and accurate data. So having a CMMS, having a system in place to help you track your maintenance will ensure you not only that you're tracking data, but that the data that you're tracking is accurate and it's good and it's ready for audits, and it will live there forever. The other thing that CMMS can help you is really centralize the information. So we talked about having your PMs on a specific frequency, having some procedures, so the step-by-steps of what you need to inspect. Then utilizing the CMMS will really help you making sure that all of those documents, all of those kind of work order reminders, everything regarding maintenance, your assets and all of that, it all lives in the same place, which makes it so much easier for you to manage. Moving on to optimizing your PM program. So if we take a step back and we look at the PDCA, so the plan, do, check, and act. So right now we planned it. We chose our KPIs. We did it, right? We started doing maintenance. We started with the procedures. Now it's time for our first check. So tracking our KPIs right here. We want to make sure that we evaluate where we are versus where we should be or where we need to be. And this is, the C of the PDCA. This is exactly it. And now moving on to the A. So if you see that, okay, well, we're a little bit behind on progress, let's come up with a list of actions that we can take to make sure that we readjust and that we can just maybe get our performance up a little bit for our program. If we're on schedule, okay, let's come up with a list of action to make sure that we maintain the pace that we have right now in terms of, the PM program and the PM completion that we have. So it's really important to just take a quick pause, review your KPIs, see where you're at, see where you should be, And then we can start moving forward again and start another cycle of the PDCA with adding some equipment. So we started with the most critical equipment. Now we want to add more because everything is doing great with what we have so far. So make sure to follow the criticality analysis to understand your program. You can, if you have similar equipment, that's the easiest step really to just introduce more equipment because you'll have similar inspection on there. You'll have similar things to do as well. And if you have other departments, so maybe your department is completed, but you have maybe the facility department at your company, they are also, a part of it, but they are not really doing any maintenance. You can introduce them to what you're doing, introduce them to the basics of your program, and then just help them kickstart. The third one, optimizing your procedures and the SOPs. So as we said previously, make sure to review your data. Make sure that you looked at, okay, what went well, what didn't went well, and then review the inspection frequencies as well. So if you were inspecting something on a weekly basis and you never had an issue so far in 6 weeks, everything is good. Every time you clean it, I mean, the equipment it's almost in perfect shape. There's nothing much to clean. Then maybe you can look into, okay, let's change that to a bi-weekly inspection instead. So you're saving yourself some time, saving operations some time as well. Everybody's happy, and then you can readjust after a few bi-weekly instances. Is it still the case? Is it still super clean? Or when we tell them, okay, the cleaning is due and we're on a good, frequency for now. The fourth one, in terms of the walking portion here, is the elevate your CMMS usage. So a lot of time we will start with a CMMS and we'll talk about, okay, the most important for us, track our assets, track our reactive work, track our preventative maintenance work, and we'll stop there to begin with, right? The crawl, walk, run, this applies 100% to implementing or to using a CMMS. But now that we're in the walking stage, okay, let's look maybe into, incorporating our parts inventory into the system. So tracking parts consumption is something that is very important. And a lot of the cost associated to maintenance comes from parts replacement. So just introducing this new feature, this new variable inside the PM program will do a lot of change and will greatly help you into making sure that you track what you need to track into your PM program. The second thing is optimizing your workload balancing. So using a CMMS will allow you to see, okay, how many hours, I should say, are we spending per week on the different PMs that we perform? How many hours are we spending inspecting or just performing PMs on one specific piece of equipment in the last month? So all of this data will help you really just balance your workload. If typically you assign or you just give the PM work all to the same type of the same people, the same team or whatever, looking at a workload view will really help you just make sure that you balance the work across the board and that everybody has some spare time as well to work on maybe some projects, maybe just, continuous improvement of the different operation workflows that you have. Now, the running portion, this is where you supercharge your program and you make sure that it's as good as it can be. So we crawled, we set up the basics, we walked, we made sure that we just keep improving our program. Now we're at the running portion. We're getting at the end. Things are running smoothly. We have some great success. The equipment is getting maintained. The production is getting better. Everything is doing well. And so it's time to make sure that we update our goals. And at this point, we can be ambitious. We can say, okay, so far, everything worked well. Let's look in the future. Let's set ourselves for something that is ambitious in terms of goals. Make sure that we have a long-term vision as well and long-term goals to say, okay, in a year from now, we've we completed like 10 work orders in a preventive work orders per week. Let's change that. Let's make it 15. And this is just our goal that we set ourselves. Make sure that you roll out to all of your equipment or that you include all of the departments as well that you have in your company. Again, we want to make sure that everything is covered by the PM program. keep on optimizing your procedures or your SOPs. At this point, you just say, okay, well, again, everything's going well. We have this kind of generic procedure for the inspection of this type of equipment. We can start into making some that are equipment specific as well. So if you have an equipment that has 3 greasing points and another one that has 4 greasing points, and your procedure was more global about, okay, well, use the greasing points to do your maintenance, you can start really creating some unique and asset-based procedures. And you can also start, using some pictures, maybe introducing pictures in there to really give a visual support to whoever might come in the future in your team or whoever needs to perform the maintenance. Um, the second point here is to look into condition-based maintenance. I mean, again, so far we've been really on the preventive. We've been really on just doing it on a schedule, on a specific calendar. But now we can start looking into, okay, well, maybe we'll just base ourselves out of condition, looking into, introducing meters in there. And this also leads us to when we go into integrations. So the IoT sensors, where you have some sensors connected to your equipment for anything from temperature, anything from vibrations. I mean, you name it, anything that you might track on your equipment that can give you those conditions that are needed to say, okay, I need to go and inspect the equipment because based on data history, based on the equipment itself, there will be a failure soon, or there is something that needs to be fixed. The last thing in terms of looking to integration, I said that the CMMS is a great place to centralize your information for tracking your assets, tracking your PMs, keeping your procedures. But then we want to make sure that you connect all of your system together as well. So we're talking about your CMMS, maybe your ERP for parts consumption and POs, so purchase orders. Maybe you have a BI tool that you're using to integrate with other system from which you just gather some information. So whenever things are running smoothly and things are going well for your PM program, this is where you can really get to the next level and make sure that everything is integrated together, everything is optimized, and this is where you'll be in a great stage. That was a lot of talking for me, so I'll take a quick pause here. Question number 3 for you. Just curious, for your current PM program situation, are you currently using a system, or are you using, Excel spreadsheet, or using a CMMS? So what are you currently using to track your PMs? I will give about a minute. Please use the chat to share with us what you are currently using. All right, I see a lot of MaintainX. Well, that's always fun to see. A lot of Excel. Oh, WhatsApp. Okay, that's a lot of Excel memory. Okay, good memory there. Okay, a lot of various options. Awesome. Well, let's keep moving forward here. So the last section of the presentation is leveraging technology. So why should you use a CMMS? Again, I have 4 main points to try to convince you, if you're not already convinced, that you should be utilizing a CMMS for your preventive maintenance program. The first one is easily accessible history. Whenever you're on the CMMS, you're 2 clicks away from years and years of maintenance records. This is very powerful. I'm putting you in a situation where you have a failure on one of your equipment, you have a breakdown, and something tells you we already had this in the past, but you cannot find, what was done, what was the investigation, what was the solution. Well, having access to a CMMS allows you to go on this equipment, go in the history of work orders, find this exact issue that happened maybe 3 years ago, and see exactly what were the steps to solve the issue. This is very powerful. The second thing is it's easy to keep track of failed inspection. So unfortunately for the inspection that pass, it's not really something that we care a lot about. I mean, if you inspect something 1,000 times and 998 times it goes well, all right, that's great, I guess. But what really interests me is when it failed, the 2 times that it failed, what happened? Why did it fail? What did we do to solve it? And having a CMMS really allows you to highlight and quickly see how did you manage the failures on your inspections. The third one, I talked a little bit about it, but investigating recurring issues. You can quickly see this specific issue. Did it happen 1 time in the last year? Did it happen 10 times? Did it happen 100 times? And this is where, when you have the data, you can easily say, okay, well, let's push the investigation. Let's see what's behind it. Let's take action. The second thing, centralizing information. I already talked about it, but no more paper, no more spreadsheets. Everything lives within the CMMS. This is the ultimate goal. The information is available for everyone at any time. If you're using, I'll give an example. If you're using MaintainX and you have the app on your phone, well, the information is in the palm of your hand at any given time, whether you're at home, whether you're next to the equipment. Also, using a CMMS is a great tool for audits. I mean, it's as simple as you open up MaintainX. What do you want to see? When I inspected this equipment, here it is. What did we inspect, 3 months ago? There's the records. Everything lives in the same place. Reporting and KPIs tracking. I mean, CMMS will come with pre-built comprehensive report, hopefully. The important KPIs are already predefined. You don't need to create anything. Everything comes out of the box. It's available to you. It's easy to track them on a week-to-week basis or on a month-to-month. So when we were talking about, the PDCA check, so just to look back at where you're at compared to your objective, this allows you to run a report and see in our 3 months that we set ourselves, we're at the middle right now. What's our progress? Are we progressing? Well, you can easily do it with the reporting functionalities of a CMMS. And last but not least, when you have your data in the system, the most critical portion for your operations for the business is making data-driven decisions. When you look at your CapEx and you're going to just invest in a big project, you don't want to do it based on gut feelings. You want to have data to back it up, and this is what the CMMS will provide you. And finally, well, a CMMS can do so much more. I mean, it's the art of the industry 4.0, big buzzwords in the last couple of years, but that's the truth. The CMMS will also allow you to be AI ready for your data foundation. So we see the AI dating more and more, just being more and more present all around us in a day-to-day basis. Having a CMMS, having the data live in there really makes you ready for what's to come. It's a modern solution that fits the new workforce. So as I was saying before, a lot of time what we see nowadays is, people, older techs, they are on the verge of retiring, and people taking their place are, younger folks. They were born with tablets in their hand. It sounds cliche, it is, but that's the truth. And having a modern solution will really allow them to perform at their day-to-day work. And finally, there are many other things that you can do with a CMMS. We're tracking parts, tracking purchase orders, utilizing meters, and this is, only a few of them that I'm naming now. So, quick slide also to showcase, MaintainX, the reason why we're number one in the industry. Well, this is a survey that was conducted for our customers in last year, so in 2023. So everything that we touched on, really reducing downtime, increasing overall equipment effectiveness, so the OEE, improving your PM percentage, so the completion of your PMs, saving on parts inventory costs, increasing inspection completed on time, even saving managers hours per week. of just filling out worksheets or things like that. These are all great reasons why MaintainX is there. We are the leader in the industry, and why I suggest that you take a look if you haven't already looked into MaintainX. Now for a summary, so we talked about creating a PM program from scratch. So what we discussed to make this successful, choose smart KPIs. So we said specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. We said that we want to have a strategy. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't try to do everything at once. Don't try to do it all in a day. It won't work. Have short, mid, and long-term goals. Build your foundation. Start simple. Start with your critical assets and with basic procedures and SOPs. Optimize your PM plan. Review your goals. Review where you are, what, when, and how you do your inspection. And last but not least, leverage technology. Use a CMMS. Use MaintainX. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.